And Trump has asked RFK to do three simple things. He's asked to get the corruption out of the U.S. health agencies, produce uncompromised evidence-based research for our health guidelines, and reverse the trends of the chronic disease epidemic in 2 years for children and adults so that we can show up for our 250th anniversary of America stronger than ever. That sounds pretty good to me.
So over the weekend, Bill Maher had a guest on his show, Dr. Casey, who absolutely went off defending RFK Jr. as the health secretary. And she was so persuasive and informed on her arguments that she actually got Bill Maher's own audience to cheer for RFK at the very end. We'll show you that obviously here today. But first, I do want to say, I really find this whole conversation around RFK to be so unbelievably frustrating because people will say, I don't like RFK as the health secretary. So then you ask them why. Okay, so what specifically don't you like? Well, he's dangerous and anti-science is always their response. And then you ask them, okay, what does he say specifically that is so dangerous and anti-science? They have no idea. They just double down on, well, he's dangerous and anti-science. And if they do have an answer, it's usually something that RFK never said or supported, such as like, RFK is against all the vaccines. He's going to bring back measles. No, he's not, right? But this is exactly the point. So before we begin today's video, folks, do us a big favor. If you enjoy the content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe if you are new. And why should you subscribe? Because it's the best way to ensure we can keep bringing you these videos, guys. We're trying to hit 400K by Donald Trump's inauguration, and you can help us get there by hitting that red button. And with that said, take a listen as Dr. Casey red pills Bill Maher and his entire audience on the issue of public health and why actually RFK is not really that crazy. Check it out.
People kind of look at you like you're crazy because I think they just are in this world of doctors know everything. And I think you're telling us in medical school you learn doctors don't. I always say, if they know everything, why do you always have to get a second opinion?
$4.5 trillion per year on healthcare costs and life expectancy is going down in the United States. Why are 80% of healthcare costs going towards chronic illnesses that are rooted in diet and lifestyle, yet at the vast majority of American medical schools, doctors in training are not taking a single nutrition course?
Wow. You're telling me that doctors have varying opinions? Like, the whole scientific consensus, there's usually not really a 100% consensus on certain things. You must be an anti-science conspiracy theorist. Although I guarantee you none of the people saying this actually live their lives that way, right? They will absolutely consult other doctors for other opinions. But then she goes on to say, and by the way, shout out to Bill Maher for sort of understanding this issue a little bit, right? But doctors should have to take a nutrition course considering chronic disease is an insane, unprecedented problem in our country. You must be a conspiracy theorist. No, chronic disease is good because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris or something. Like, do these people understand how ridiculous they sound when they oppose? Like, what is the argument against this? Again, what does it always revert back to? Well, you're anti-science. Why? Because you are. I don't know.
And so you have to ask these questions. If we were crushing it, we would not be spending 2x every other country in the entire world and have the lowest life expectancy of any developed country in the entire world. Only one party in our election cycle this year was talking about chronic illness. The words chronic illness, as far as I know, never came out of the Harris campaign's mouth. And
you know what I think is so interesting about this? They claim RFK is so dangerous and controversial. Honestly, I've long been of the opinion that this stance, although it wasn't really measured or polled about Make America Healthy Again, really was a lot more impactful in a positive way in this election than people realize. But we could kind of measure that, right? If you ask the average American, if they thought that processed food was good, big pharma was good and had no issues with it, or health and chronic disease were not problems in America, nobody would agree with you, right? The average American is concerned about these things, believe it or not. They might not live like that every single day in their daily lives, hence why we still have these issues, but everyone cares about their health. Isn't it so interesting how the only opposition to RFK for HHS is coming from where? Politicians and the mainstream media, both entities that are heavily funded by Big Pharma, right? Big Pharma donates obviously a lot to the political campaigns of both parties. And on top of that, the entire MSM industry, whether it's CNN, MSNBC, even Fox News to an extent, are propped up by big pharmaceutical advertising. This is something that RFK actually talked about a lot on the campaign trail. You know, when they advertise these pharmaceutical drugs on TV, we're the only country besides New Zealand that even allows that to happen. And by the way, when you take a look at it, the big reason a lot of these places like CNN are not totally out of business is because, yes, those pharmaceutical companies are spending a lot of money advertising and kind of keeping their business models afloat. But you can't possibly imagine that there might be a conflict of interest there. Maybe there's a reason why the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about these issues or call it out, or they want to ridicule RFK as a conspiracy theorist. It couldn't possibly have anything to do with the money, right? I don't know, just a thought.
And I think that was a misstep, because Americans are, I think, tired of being gaslit about the fact that there's not a problem right now. And when we look around us, and we know there is, and Trump has asked RFK to do 3 simple things. He's asked to get the corruption out of the U.S. health agencies, produce uncompromised evidence-based research for our health guidelines, and reverse the trends of the chronic disease epidemic in 2 years for children and adults so that we can show up for our 250th anniversary of America stronger than ever. That sounds pretty good to me.
And this is very telling. Like I said, if you ask the average American if they thought these things were problems and they want to see someone address or talk about it, everyone would say yes. Listen to the reception she got from Bill Maher's audience. People are cheering out of their minds because they're very happy and excited about what she said. And that's the thing. When I say the average American does not think processed food is good for you, or that like the food and drug system in our country is just totally great and fantastic, I said average American. I did not make a distinction between left or right. Okay, Bill Maher's show is taped out of Southern California. And I will tell you something, as someone who grew up very close to where Bill Maher, tapes his show, California hippies and health nuts actually care a lot about this type of stuff. Okay, it's very interesting. Before this became sort of a right-wing issue where health is now more on that side, it was a liberal issue for a very long time. And my fellow Californians will attest to that. And maybe there are some disagreements between the hippies and the right-wing lifter people in terms of how we should fix health, but everyone is in agreement on certain common principles. And again, that's why I say it's so interesting. The American people overwhelmingly support this. They overwhelmingly agree with it. But the only opposition, again, is coming from entities that are funded by Big Pharma. And the only Americans who are against RFK, the average ones, are people who are being misled because all mainstream media is doing is lying about the things that RFK actually believes. And that's very sad. But at the same time, very excited to see RFK, hopefully, if he's successful, will make this country healthier, happier, stronger. And in the end, I have to imagine a lot of people will thank him for it. Just saying.
I said to them at that time, you've said publicly that I've been dishonest about that. Can you show us a single pre-licensing safety trial, placebo-controlled safety trial for any of the 72 vaccines required for American children? And he made that show of looking through a file, and he said, well, they're back in Bethesda. And I said, will you send them to me? And I never heard from him again. So we sued the HHS under the Freedom of Information Law. After a year of litigation, they sent us a letter which is posted on CHD's website that acknowledges that they are now not able to locate a single pre-licensing safety trial, placebo-controlled, for any of the vaccines that are now mandated for children. These are zero liability vaccines. I'm not anti-vaccine, but I think we need to be honest and we need to have good science. I spent 30 years trying to get mercury out of the fish in this country, and nobody ever called me anti-fish.
Yeah, just saying, right? And I think, one of the biggest narratives coming out of this election is obviously that the Democrats, the mainstream institutions, did not really understand how the American people felt or what they cared about. Because as it turns out, the American people did not care more about abortion or electing the first black woman president than they cared about immigration and the economy. And we understand this by now. But I would argue the debate over public health is yet another area that's not being talked about, but true in this election and going forward, where the mainstream powerful institutions versus the people are completely out of touch, right? They think that when they just ridicule RFK as like an anti-science nut job, it's convincing the people. But in reality, again, I think this is so underrated. A lot of the things that RFK Jr. talked about and stressed so much are very important to people, and they agree with him on it. You know, they might not know all the details, but they're like, yeah, clearly something is wrong, right? Why are my kids sick? Why am I sick? Why is cancer feel like it's everywhere now, whereas it wasn't before? What's going on with this, right? They want to see it addressed. And again, the only reason I can think of, besides the fact that you're a sociopathic maniac to oppose a cleanup of our food, health, and drug system, is because you're being funded by the very industry that is currently in power on that stuff. And, it is what it is. With that said, though, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.